Millionaire hired a black nanny for his disabled son, and what he saw broke his heart. I told her to get out of my house right now. Victoria's voice echoed through the walls of the mansion as she pointed accusingly at Maya, who was holding Michael in her arms. Did you see how she rummaged through the drawers in the office? Who knows what else she's stolen since she got here? Maya stood motionless, her gaze steady and dignified, while 8-year-old Michael, unable to speak due to cerebral palsy, clung to her tightly, his large eyes begging her not to leave. The contrast between the child's silent despair and the blatant accusation was heartbreaking. I was just putting away the drawings Michael made today, Maya replied, her voice firm despite the public humiliation in front of the guests at the charity garden party. The office drawers are where I keep all his art supplies, just like I've done every day for the past 3 months. Andrew Reynolds descended the main staircase in quick steps, his impeccable $3,000 suit unable to hide the exhaustion in his eyes. At 42, the tech entrepreneur looked much older. The death of his wife Rebecca during Michael's birth had left a permanent shadow on his face. What's going on here? He asked, his gaze shifting between his sister-in-law Victoria and Maya. I'm finally going to prove what I've been saying all along, Victoria replied, adjusting her pearl necklace as if she were about to make an official announcement. I found your perfect babysitter rummaging through your office. God knows what she's picked up. Before Andrew looked at Maya, noticing how his son clung to her. It was the first time in years he had seen Michael show any kind of attachment. For a long time, it had been just him and a never-ending string of nurses and caregivers who never stayed more than a few weeks. The 3-story house in Greenwich, Connecticut, with its 10 suites, Olympic-sized swimming pool, and art collections, was a cold museum where father and son existed as strangers. Come to my office, my Victoria. Please take care of the guests. Andrew's tone brooked no argument. What secret is this nanny hiding that could change everything? Stay tuned to Black Voices to find out. In his office, Andrew opened the drawer he had mentioned. Inside, carefully organized, were colorful drawings, scribbles really, but with an intensity of color he had never seen his son use before. Did he paint these himself? He asked, his voice suddenly breaking. Yes, I was able to adapt the brushes so he could hold them better, Maya replied. Today, he used red for the first time. He always avoided that color. A flash of memory hit Andrew. Rebecca had loved red. It was the color of the dress she wore when they first met, the color she had chosen for the nursery she never got to see. Maya watched the realization dawn on Andrew and continued, I realized that he has memories. He understands much more than people give him credit for. 3 months earlier, Maya Hampton had arrived for her final interview after all the other candidates had been rejected or had given up. Andrew remembered the moment she walked in. No expensive jewelry or designer clothes, just a 34-year-old woman with an impressive resume and special education and a calmness that seemed out of place in the chaotic atmosphere of the mansion. What surprised him most was when, ignoring the adults in the room, Mia crouched down to Michael's height and said, Hi, champ, my name is Maya, can I sit here with you? It was the first time in years that Andrew had seen his son's eyes focus on someone with genuine interest. Victoria, Rebecca's sister, never hid her discomfort with Maya's presence. Do you really think it's wise to have someone like her looking after Michael? We have to think about the family's reputation, she had whispered on the first day when Maya was busy tidying Michael's room. But in the 3 months that followed, something happened that Andrew had considered impossible. His son began to respond. First, there were small signs, a longer gaze, a fleeting smile, then, intentional movements, attempts at communication, even small sounds that Mia seemed to understand instinctively. Don't explain, Ma, I know my sister, Andrew said finally. I know why she does this, and it has nothing to do with you rummaging through her drawers. Mia hesitated, then said something that intrigued him. This isn't the first time I've dealt with this kind of situation, Mr. Reynolds, and I'm sure it won't be the last. There was a quiet strength in her eyes that made Andrew wonder what else this woman had faced in her life. What had other rich, privileged families done to her before? And why, despite everything, did she keep coming back to take care of children like Michael when she could easily find less problematic jobs? At that moment, as the guests socialized carefree in the garden, and Victoria distributed fake smiles, something changed in Andrew's gaze. It was as if for the first time in years, he truly saw what was happening under his own roof. The pain he felt was not only for what Maya was facing, but for what he had allowed to happen through his own emotional absence. If this story about prejudice and the unlikely connection between a millionaire, his disabled son, and a nanny who faces hostility because of her color touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to Black Voices to find out how a simple act of unfair accusation will become the catalyst for a change that no one will ever forget. What shocking truth will be revealed next? Keep watching on Black Voices to discover the twist. That night, after the guests left, Mia retired to the small room at the back of the mansion. Sitting on the bed, she opened a notebook and meticulously recorded day 94. Michael used his communicator to choose his clothes today. He maintained eye contact for 47 seconds. New record. Page after page documented every bit of progress the boy made. The door opened without warning. So, this is what you do when you're alone. Write about us. Victoria snatched the notebook from her hands. It's a professional journal about Michael's progress, Maya replied, regaining the notebook with surprising firmness. Part of the protocol, I explained to Mr. Reynolds, a nanny with scientific methods. How pretentious. I have a degree in cognitive neuroscience from Columbia University, Maya replied, her calm tone contrasting with tension in the air. I'm not just a nanny. Victoria froze momentarily, then regained her composure with a condescending smile. So that's it, you want to impress Andrew with your degrees? Get ahead in life through the back door. The next morning, something unprecedented happened. Andrew showed up for breakfast dressed casually, no suit, no corporate cell phone. I thought I'd spend the morning with you guys, he said, his voice betraying his uncertainty. While Maya led a music therapy session, Andrew watched with fascination as his son responded. When Michael managed to play 3 notes in sequence on the adapted xylophone, his eyes lit up with a joy his father hardly recognized. How did you discover that he liked music? Andrew asked, his voice soft. By paying attention, Mia replied. Michael has clear preferences. People assume that nonverbal children have no opinions. That's the biggest mistake we can make. Later, Janet, the housekeeper who had worked at the mansion for decades, approached discreetly. Mrs. Victoria is checking your references, she whispered, glancing nervously at the door. I heard her say she would find something to expose your true nature. This isn't the first time, Janet continued. Rebecca was a good person, but Victoria always controlled everything. I've seen 3 nurses and 2 therapists get fired because she didn't approve of them, and Michael is the one who suffers the consequences. Mia concluded. Exactly. I've never seen the boy respond to anyone the way he responds to you. I'm not going anywhere, Janet, Mia said with surprising determination. Not this time. When Janet left, Mia opened her laptop and sent a cryptic email to someone identified only as Professor Whitman. I'll need those documents sooner than expected. The situation is escalating. In the weeks that followed, Andrew became increasingly involved in Michael's life. These weren't just quick visits, but genuine involvement, learning the communication systems Maya had implemented. What does she really want, Andrew? Victoria confronted him one evening. Don't you find it strange that a woman with supposed training in neuroscience is working as a nanny? Have you ever considered that maybe she genuinely cares about him? Don't be naive. People like her always have an angle, a goal. People like her. Andrew stopped what he was doing. What exactly do you mean by that, Victoria? What Victoria didn't know was that on that same night, Maya was participating in a video conference with Dr. James Whitman, a renowned neurologist, and Sarah Chun, a lawyer specializing in disability rights. I've gathered all the documentation, Dr. Whitman said. If necessary, we have a significant case of medical negligence on our hands and deliberate sabotage of treatment, Maya added, showing him meticulously organized reports. Michael has abilities that have been actively suppressed for years. Most troubling are the treatment refusal signatures, Sarah noted. Are you sure they weren't signed by his father? I'm almost certain they were forged, and I know by whom. The next morning, Andrew found an advanced alternative communication device for Michael on his desk. Where did you get this? He asked, surprised. I have contacts in the assisted technology department at Columbia, Maya replied simply. What she didn't mention was that she had personally secured the equipment through professional relationships. Victoria would never have imagined, when Michael used the device for the first time to communicate more music. Andrew's eyes filled with tears. It was at that moment that Victoria triumphantly entered with an envelope. I finally found out who she really is, Andrew. When you learn the truth, you'll realize that I've been protecting you from the beginning. What Victoria didn't notice was the small smile on Maya's lips, like someone who had anticipated every move of an underestimated opponent and was just waiting for the perfect moment to reveal her true game. At that moment, while Victoria imagined she had found the perfect weapon to get rid of the nanny, Maya had already silently assembled the pieces of a much larger board where every move had been meticulously calculated, not for her own protection, but to finally give Michael the voice they had tried to silence for so long. I finally found out who she really is, Andrew, Victoria announced, opening the envelope with a theatrical flourish. Dr. Maya Hampton, not just a nanny, but a cognitive neuroscience expert who was working on a study of children with cerebral palsy at Columbia University until she was mysteriously dismissed 2 years ago. Andrew looked confused at Maya, who remained calm, one hand still resting on Michael's shoulder. She was suspended from the university, Andrew. She used controversial methods and now she's using your son as her new experiment without your consent. Maya finally stood up. I'm surprised it took you so long, Victoria. Your private investigators aren't very efficient. Victoria's confidence faltered momentarily. Yes, I am Dr. Maya Hampton, she continued, adjusting Michael's communication device, and I was indeed removed from Columbia. Do you know why? For exposing the deliberate sabotage of promising experimental treatments for children with cerebral palsy, treatments that were producing remarkable results until they were abruptly halted due to pressure from an anonymous donor. Victoria paled visibly. Andrew, may I use your computer for a moment? Maya asked calmly. With a hesitant nod from Andrew, Maya plugged in a flash drive. Official documents bearing the letterhead of the hospital where Michael was born appeared on the screen. I found these files while organizing the office, forms refusing specific therapies for Michael over the years, all signed by his father. Maya enlarged one of the signatures. Is this your signature, Andrew? Andrew examined the document, his face hardening. I've never seen these forms in my life. Because you never signed them, Maya finished. For years, someone deliberately prevented Michael from receiving advanced treatments that could have significantly improved his condition. Victoria took a step back. This is absurd. She's clearly trying to create intrigue. 2 handwriting experts have confirmed that these signatures were forged. Maya interrupted, displaying another document, and interestingly, the anonymous donor who halted my research at Columbia was the Bennett Family Foundation. Victoria's last name glowed on the screen. Victoria. Andrew's voice was icy. Why? She feared that if Michael got better, her influence over you and access to the estate would diminish. Mia explained. Isn't that right, Victoria? Ridiculous. Victoria tried to regain her composure. Andrew, she's manipulating you. This woman invaded our lives. And she was interrupted by the sound of Michael's device. Everyone turned to the boy who was tapping the screen with determination. A robotic voice filled the room. Victoria lied. The silence that followed was deafening. This device has a programmed diary, Maya explained softly. Michael has been recording his experiences, including conversations Victoria had when she thought he didn't understand. Andrew approached his son, his voice trembling. Michael, do you understand what's happening? The boy tapped more buttons. Always. I understood everything. Victoria backed away toward the door, bewildered. This is absurd. He doesn't have the capacity to. That's the point, Victoria. Maya replied firmly. He always has. You just made sure no one found out. At that moment, Janet entered carrying a box. The documents you requested. Dr. Hampton, what are those? Andrew demanded the original records of the therapies recommended for Michael since birth. Maya replied, Janet kept them when Victoria ordered them destroyed. Janet nodded. Mrs. Rebecca would have wanted her son to have every opportunity. Mr. Reynolds, I couldn't let that be hidden. Andrew leafed through the documents, his face shifting from disbelief to fury. Years of denied treatment, of wasted potential, and today, in front of everyone, Maya added calmly, Columbia University is announcing the resumption of my research, now funded by the most respected neuroscience foundation in the country. This research that Victoria tried to shut down. The front door opened and a group of people in formal attire entered. Dr. Whitman led the way, followed by executives and journalists. The Hampton Project for Assisted Communication has just received full federal approval, Whitman announced, and its first official ambassador will be Michael Reynolds. Victoria cornered finally exploded. She's just an opportunist, a freeloader who, a black woman with 3 PhDs who developed technology capable of giving children like Michael a voice. Andrew interrupted. Technology you deliberately tried to suppress. As camera flashes captured the scene, Michael wearing his device, Ma standing beside him with unshakable dignity, and Victoria cornered against the wall. A silent transformation took place in that mansion. It was as if years of silence had finally found their voice in a single afternoon of revealed truths. At the center of it all, smiling shyly for the first time, was Michael. His device emitted one last message before the reporters were invited inside. Maya, stay home. And as Victoria watched her empire of lies crumble around her, one question hung in the air: how do you rebuild a family when the truth finally emerges from the shadows? Because for Michael and Andrew, this wasn't the end of the story, but the real beginning. The weeks that followed completely transformed the Reynolds mansion. Where once there had been a cold silence broken only by curt orders, intense arguments, now there was lively conversation, music, and the most precious sound of all, Michael's digital laughter through his communication device. After the public exposure, Victoria disappeared from the social radar. Her name was removed from the Bennett Foundation's board of directors, and her invitations to charity events mysteriously ceased. Her desperate attempt to sue Andrew for defamation failed when the evidence of forgery proved irrefutable. The judge not only dismissed the case, but recommended a separate criminal investigation for document fraud. Your ex-sister-in-law is in Miami now, Janet commented as she served breakfast. Apparently, she sold the house and is trying to start over where no one knows her. Some people run from shame, Andrew replied, helping Michael with his new adapted feeding system. Others face the consequences and change. The most remarkable transformation, however, was Michael. In just 3 months of intensive therapy, the same therapy Victoria had blocked for years, he had developed enough motor control to use an adapted joystick. His ability to communicate expanded exponentially, revealing not only an intact intelligence, but a vibrant personality that had been trapped inside his own body. The damage was significant, Dr. Whitman explained during one of the follow-up sessions, but the human brain, especially a young one, has extraordinary plasticity. The neural connections Michael is establishing now are impressive. NBC's report on Michael's miracle brought to light not only his story of overcoming adversity, but also the systemic failures that allowed a child with abundant financial resources to be deprived of essential treatments due to prejudice and greed. The video of Michael demonstrating his new abilities reached millions of views, catapulting the Hampton Initiative into the center of discussions about assistive communication. One Sunday afternoon, as Maya supervised Michael's new hydrotherapy session in the pool, Andrew approached with a folder. I need you to look at this, he said, handing her official documents. It's a proposal from the university. Maya scanned the papers, her eyes widening. An entire research center dedicated to assistive communication and atypical neurological development. That's monumental. The board of directors approved it unanimously. They want you to lead it as scientific director. Andrew smiled, and they wanted to bear Michael's name, the Michael Reynolds Center for Assistive Communication. Maya read aloud, he'd be so proud. Michael, realizing they were talking about him, activated his device and Maya, teach other children, yes, champ, she replied, tears welling in her eyes, we're going to help thousands of children like you. Andrew watched the two of them, marveling at the complete transformation of his family. The mansion, once a mausoleum of painful memories, now held hope and purpose. The loss of Rebecca would never be filled, but a new kind of love had found room to blossom. On the day of the center's grand opening 6 months later, the line of families seeking evaluation and treatment stretched around the block. Maya, in an elegant navy blazer, gave interviews while Andrew and Michael cut the ribbon. Dr. Hampton, how does it feel to see your work finally recognized? Asked a reporter. It was never about recognition, Maya replied simply. It was about giving a voice to those who were forced into silence. The camera panned to Michael, now wearing a more advanced device mounted on his motorized chair that he controlled himself. With a beaming smile, he pressed a sequence of buttons that produced a complete message. Maya showed the world that I'm here. I've always been here. Now everyone can see. The opening night culminated in a charity dinner that raised over $2 million for treatment grants for families in need. At the head table next to Andrew and Michael, Mia was surprised when the little boy activated his device. Mia Novimum's silence fell over the table. Andrew placed his hand over Mia's, his eyes questioning whether she was ready for this public conversation. Michael, she began carefully, you will always have your mother Rebecca in your heart. I would never try to replace her, but if you and your father will allow me, I would love to be an official part of this family. Andrew then stood up, pulling a small box from his pocket. I wasn't planning on doing this here, but apparently my son has his own ideas about timing, he joked, eliciting emotional laughter from the guests. Maya Hampton, you turned our lives around when everyone, including me, had given up on finding the light. You taught us that true strength isn't found in power or money, but in refusing to accept injustice and committing to fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Maya's face as she accepted. Michael repeatedly pressed the happy button on his device, creating a digital celebration that spread to everyone present. In the months that followed, the Michael Reynolds Center expanded to 3 additional locations in different states. Michael's success story inspired legislative changes regarding early assessment and intervention for children with similar disabilities. Victoria eventually attempted reconciliation through a formal letter of apology. Andrew responded with a donation in her name for scholarships for Black students in neuroscience, a gentle but firm reminder that redemption begins with actions, not words. At the intimate wedding ceremony held in the mansion's garden, Michael surprised everyone by using his device to deliver a full speech he had secretly practiced for weeks. Maya taught us that sometimes we need help finding our voice. Dad taught us that it's never too late to learn to listen. Together, they showed us that family isn't who looks alike, but who loves alike. As the couple danced under the twinkling lights in the garden, with Michael watching with a beaming smile, the transformation was complete. A black nanny who had faced prejudice and mistrust had not only found her place but redefined the meaning of family for everyone around her, proving that behind the barriers of communication, privilege, and prejudice, there is always the possibility of genuine connection and profound transformation. And so a story that began with unfair accusations and veiled prejudice culminated in the creation of a legacy that would change thousands of lives, because sometimes the heart that breaks is not the one we expect, it is the hardened heart that finally opens up to truth, justice, and a love that transcends all expectations. If this story touched your heart and made you reflect on how prejudice can blind privileged people to the true competence and kindness around them, subscribe to Black Voices for more stories that reveal how dignity and excellence always find their way, even when all systems seem to conspire against them.